Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Pam Bond. I work for the City of Boise, and today I'm going to be talking to you about our very first hub site that we created for a community engagement initiative called the City of Trees Challenge. And really, this was a call to action. We were basically challenged ourselves to come up with a really clean way for our community to share with us where and when they are planting trees, and also for us to be able to determine what the benefits are with those. And so, obviously the first step for us was some sort of a needs assessment. And what our Parks and Recreation Department was looking for was a community survey for submitting trees planted by our community members, a way to calculate iTree benefits in near real time. And I'll talk a little bit more about what iTree is here in a second, and then be able to display those results in a dynamic and engaging platform. We also needed it to be a platform that easily integrated and had the ability to look and feel like our current website. And so after looking at some of our options, we decided that Hub, and especially Hub Premium, was going to be the best fit for us. And so now the City of Boise is subscribing to Hub Premium. And if you don't know the difference between those, I suggest Googling it. But some of you actually maybe are probably already using Hub. If you are using ArcGIS Online to create your open data sites, that is a Hub site. And Hub Premium is a little bit different because it does provide you with some more community engagement tools and some other cool things that you can do. And again, I'll talk a little bit more about that. So first steps here was really determining our base data. And and I will say in this, it's just from learning from the past, it's really a good idea to be really thoughtful from the beginning and ask a lot of questions up front to save yourself some headache when setting up your data. So because of the way I knew this was going to work out, I wanted to be as hands off as possible. So I wanted to do automation to help me so that I wasn't having to do any manual data manipulation beyond just the initial setup. I wanted to set it and forget it. And so we started by creating a enterprise geodatabase feature class, just a point feature class with all of these different fields. We were very thoughtful about what the field names are, aliases, what format it is, setting up domains, defaults, anything to make it easier for people to enter data correctly. And like I said, I highly encourage you to put some thought into this because it will save you in the end. Like bad data might as well be no data, right? Like if you set people up for success to gather good information by using things like domains, basically pick lists, or default values, you're going to get the information that you want to move forward. And the information we wanted to move forward was necessary parameters for calculating those iTree eco benefits. So you can see here towards the bottom, all of these fields are reserved for making that happen. And all of these fields on the top here are either auto-populated or are captured through a survey from our community members. So carefully curate those. I wanted to note there are some caveats when creating Survey 123 forms from existing data on non-federated ArcGIS servers. So non-versioned has to have a global ID field, has to have archiving enabled. When you publish to your ArcGIS server, it must be secured and then be registered to your ArcGIS Online organization with the credentials saved. There's lots of great help documentation online to help with this, and I'm always willing to be a resource since I've done it. And so please send me an email if you decide to go down this path. So the next step was creating a community survey. And because we were creating a survey from an existing data set, now granted, after I created that initial feature class, it was empty. There was no data in there, but we had all the fields set up. So we had all of the pieces parameters needed to create a survey. And so we couldn't use the web version. We had to use Survey 123 Connect. If you don't know the difference, Survey 123 Connect is a desktop application versus the web application. And it looks something like this. You just download it from the website and the initial interface looks like this. But really, The power comes in, this form is built using something called XLS forms. And here's a screenshot of what that is. On initial glance, you're thinking, oh, well, that's an Excel spreadsheet. It is not. It is a very different from an Excel spreadsheet. You can see all these tabs down here. They all have meaningful um, meaningful uses for that survey that you're creating. So you build your groups of questions, you build your questions in this form, and it's super powerful because you can set things like the appearance. So here you can see I have some hidden fields. These are fields that are getting populated with values that the user filling out the form doesn't know anything about, but I want that information to be in there and I want it to be submitted every time somebody submits a survey. And there's autocomplete options available. You can make fields read only. So for example, I use this pull data. I'm literally pulling data out of an auxiliary table. When they tell me what the common species name is, I'm auto-populating the scientific species name by pulling it out of another table. Nobody, community member doesn't know that. Nobody needs to know that. We just want that for our internal purposes, just to have good data. So this is a way for you to get all of the data you need without making your users hand manually input it. And then also something that we put in here that I really like to use in all of my surveys, especially when they're community oriented, is having a hidden field having to do with like your quality assessment. So for example, I have a quality assessment field and it has 4 domain values: approved, needs review, in review, and you can use that to your advantage. So for example, if you want to assess data before it goes out onto a public platform, like a map that you would share with the public, have a default value of needs review be set in that field, and then when you have somebody from your staff go in and look at it, they can change it to approved, and then use your ArcGIS Online querying tools, your filtering tools to be able to just show the things that are approved. So use those hidden fields to your advantage. So yeah, super powerful things you can do. I know I've just scratched the surface when it comes to using Connect, but it really can do some awesome things. So from that, we get our survey. Let's just open that up here. And it looks like this. It's really user friendly. So we first ask them to tell us what the tree is. And here, if they start typing, it's going to narrow down their list. Let's say they planted a juniper of some kind, and boom, that just auto populates. And we just put that there so people can see it, but they can't manipulate it. I'm saying, hey, this is read only. You could only look at it. And then we ask them questions about what's the diameter of your tree. We tell them how you measure it, give them a nice little picture, setting default values here just in case. And here it's important for us to have a default value because the diameter of the tree, this measurement is necessary for calculating those benefits. So again, keeping those required fields in mind when having people fill out the survey. When they planted it, the star means it's a required field. They can't submit this survey without telling us when. Um, some questions about what type of property. We ask them to give us a location on the map, and so this is this is your spatial component. But we also ask them to give us their address, and we do this for a number of reasons. One, we want to be able to contact them through their email address if we want to do any sort of follow-up. And then two, they give us a physical address of where the tree is planted. That's probably also their mailing address. And this is like a double check for this. Sometimes people don't put it in the right spot or they don't put it at all. Um, and we can kind of double check that. And really that's about it. And then ask them if they're interested, and that's it. Really simple form for our community to fill out and be a part of, take a meaningful part of this initiative. So, I'm not going to show you the hub site just yet, but there's a few more pieces that had to be put in place. So, one of the things that they want to be able to show on the hub site is something called iTree benefits. I'm not a tree person. I didn't know what these were. I didn't know how to get to them. It took me a while to figure out how I was going to pull this off. And so, first place started is talking to our Parks and Rec staff who use iTree tools and they're desktop tools. So they crunch data using a desktop application. It's like, well, we couldn't do that and make it near real time, right? That's what they wanted. So it's like there has to be something available. And we know that they have online tools available um, where you can just plug in some numbers and they spit some things back out at you. So it's like there has to be some sort of maybe like an API or something that we could use that we could pull information from. And so I ended up finally, it took a while, finally finding a contact at a company called Davy. And they set me up with a beta API that calculates these iTree benefits. And so um, just learning a little bit more about iTree. I mean, this is all science-based, research-based calculations that are going on, talking about different benefits of planting trees. So looking at things like how they affect energy, carbon, air quality, stormwater runoff, all of those things. And again, it's just all about the science. So really science-based information that we give them some parameters. What kind of tree is it? What's the diameter? Where is it planted? And we can plug it in to an API that they've given us access to and run those numbers. And I can do that, and I do that on a daily basis with just a Python script and Windows Task Scheduler. So here's just kind of a sneak peek at what that Python script would look like. Oh, that's not very good. Let's go back here. And so, I'm sure there's more elegant ways, more efficient ways of writing this, but really, I'm pinging that API. I'm giving it some parameters, and these are parameters that I'm pulling out of the data now. So from the data that our community has given us, I'm asking it some information. I'm using that information to ping that API, and then I'm getting a response. And with that, I'm I'm populating all of those eco-benefit fields that I have in my feature class. So again, this is an automated thing. I don't have anything to do with it. I have it set up so it only calculates benefits for trees that were planted in the last day. So I'm not calculating benefits for every tree every time it runs. So trying to make it a little bit more efficient. Um, so you end up, you know, populating all of these fields with all of these numbers that don't really mean anything to me, but it's coming right from the source, right from iTree using their API. And if anyone is interested in iTree or the API, please contact me. I'll get you set up with the folks at Davy. They're very interested to have other people using it for their own cities. Um, Last piece, one of the things that was asked of me was also they wanted to keep track of how many trees have been planted. Not only just trees planted by the public, but trees being planted by, our forestry department or by the city schools and add those numbers together. And so it's a little bit of a rinky-dink way about it, but it works. I created just a couple of simple tables in ArcGIS Online. One of them is this public trees planted by entity, and that allows somebody from our Parks and Rec staff to just go to ArcGIS Online and update numbers in this table. And then I, again, use just a simple Python script to update a different table called total trees planted. And this silly little script basically just updates a couple of fields inside of this, total trees planted table that lives in ArcGIS Online, and then I can ping that table in my hub site. So finally, let's take a look at the hub site. So this is where it is. It's really, really easy to make changes and format this differently. If I open up the edit tools here, you can see that you just, click on your certain pieces here and it will allow you to do things. One thing that I absolutely love about Hub are these summary statistic um, layout items. And really you're using real data. So I told you that I was wanting to figure out, like, keep track of, like, they want to have like real time numbers on how many trees are being planted. So every day this gets updated based on how many trees were planted, you know, from the past and the day before. So it's basically, less than a day behind. Not exactly real time, but pretty close. and and it's pulling right from an ArcGIS Online item that you can find from your initiative or from any of your content. So you're using real data to update these numbers. And then I've also just, embedded a really simple map showing where the trees are planted. And then the big thing was calculating those eco benefits. And these are all being pulled, from that data set that is tied to our SDE feature class that was published as a secure service that is being information is being gathered through the survey 123 form, and I'm not doing anything. We this is totally hands off now. So now that it's set up with all of those different pieces, you get this really slick um, page, and nobody knows what's going on behind the scenes, and it all just gets updated, and I don't have to think about it. Nothing has to be updated. Things just automatically get updated, and the community can come out here and look at it. The nice thing is you can also add different pages. So for example, we took that survey that we created and put it out on a separate page called Plant a Tree. Let's see if I can actually get to it. So we just embedded that survey 123 form right into another page, and people are none the wiser. You can also link out to other pages. And then another really cool thing about Hub is you can create events. So let's go back to our initial page here. So as you can see, this is our one and only initiative. Yeah, so the last thing I wanted to mention are these, you can set up events and they can show up on a calendar. We don't have any yet, but I was going to show you a past one. And these are really cool because it gives you all of the space to give all of the details, the description, who's organizing it, if there's sponsors, information about where it is and the dates, and that would just show right up on a calendar in your Hub site. And there are other cool things you can do in Hub. Um, we are still flirting with the idea of having community members being a part of this somehow, in that, maybe they log in and they get to just see their own trees and what the iTree benefits just for their own trees are. We're not entirely sure how many people would be interested in that. Or, setting up, one cool thing with Survey 123 is you can use these things, I believe they call them like eye hooks, web hooks, where you can maybe send out, an initial email after somebody submits a survey automatically or something like that. So there's still some utility that we haven't utilized yet, but may in the future. But um, yeah, so that is our site, and I just wanted to share all of this with you just to show you that, even though, and I'm sure others of you have come across this as well, even though something like a hub site on the outside, might look pretty easy to pull together, sometimes there's a lot of GIS magic, GIS magic on the back end happening to make some of this pull off. And on some level, it's like the GIS magic isn't always necessary, but the way we thought about this and wanting to make this pretty hands off, we didn't want anybody to have to be manually doing anything. You really do have to start relying on um, more powerful things like Survey 123 Connect, and connecting. We wanted this to be a part of our enterprise data, so we wanted it to be an enterprise feature class, so that our folks in the department could easily get to it and use it for other purposes. And it was being backed up and saved and we had some semblance of control over it. It just wasn't living out in ArcGIS Online. And then of course using Python for tapping into things like APIs. That's a fairly new thing for me, and it's a good skill to have in your toolbox. So yeah, I will wrap it up there and just say if anyone has any questions about this, I'll be happy to answer them in the Q&A session. But afterwards, always happy to field questions about Hub, Python, using iTree, and anything along those lines. You can email me at pbond, P-B-O-N-D, at cityofboise.org.